Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
One of the most respected season forecasts for the Atlantic hurricane season has been updated, saying that we can now expect an above-average season. Does that mean that we're in for a bumpy July, August, and September? Amanda and our featured meteorologist will be breaking that down on this edition of Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. Hello there to you folks, JB, Amanda, and our featured meteorologist today, Michael Haynes, joining us from WIAT CBS 42 in Birmingham, Alabama. Great to have Michael on Tracking the Tropics for the first time as we are here live in your hurricane headquarters. Amanda and Michael are going to be breaking it down. But we want to let you know, we want to bring you guys into the conversation wherever you're watching from, especially Facebook Live. See the hashtags all around your screen. Hashtag Hey Michael, hashtag Hey Amanda, hashtag Hey JB. We'll be monitoring the Facebook Live comment section for any comments that have those hashtags so we can bring you interactively into the conversation. But Amanda, I want to start with you because there is something here in the Atlantic we're monitoring, but it's a big slice of nothing, correct?
It really is, which is good news. This is the type of storm that we like to see at any point during the hurricane season, right? So you can see that orange bubble in the middle of the screen. That is an area of showers and thunderstorms at the National Hurricane Center, giving a medium chance of developing into something tropical or subtropical here over the next couple of days. But the key here is that it's moving away from the United States. So regardless of development, this will not impact anyone in the United States. But obviously something that we are keeping an eye here because we track all the tropics on Tracking the Tropics. What we really want to talk about today, though, is the Colorado State updated forecast. It did update on July 6th, and periodically, this is normal throughout hurricane season. Colorado State will update their forecasts with the latest atmospheric processes that we continue to see happen. So their latest forecast that they issued last week on July 6th actually increased the number of storms that we could see this season to 18 named storms. They increased the number of hurricanes to 9 possible total hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. We'll get another update from them on August 3rd, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why we could possibly see that above average season now, because originally both NOAA and Colorado State were forecasting an average season for us, an average season being about 14 named storms. So the first thing, and I did read this in multiple of their reports, they're cautioning this forecast that it has more uncertainty than normal. And if you've been watching over the past several weeks, really since the beginning of this hurricane season, this is going to sound very familiar. They caution uncertainty, more uncertainty than normal, because we're seeing conflicting atmospheric signals between, you guessed it, the water temperatures and the El Nino that we are seeing developing in the Pacific. The water temperatures are nearing record levels. They have been very warm for several months now, but we continue to forecast a strong El Nino developing, which leads to stronger winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which prevents those storms from forming. So they are thinking, though, that possibly the warmer waters of the Atlantic will win out. The bottom line is we've already had 4 storms out there, 3 named storms, and then 1 unnamed storm that formed in January. The National Hurricane Center did a post-analysis on this storm, and they determined that it could have been named if they had some better tools at the time. So 4 total storms, 3 named, 1 unnamed, and that is included in that total of 18 forecast names from the Colorado State University. So want to bring in Michael, our featured meteorologist, for this week's episode. We were talking before the stream. You follow hurricane season a lot. You get impacted by hurricanes. What are your thoughts on the updated forecast from Colorado State?
Yeah, man, as you mentioned, they exercised some caution and in the very top of that report, because it's going to be a balancing act between those high sea surface temperatures, very hot temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico in the upper 80s, even close to 90 in some spots, and then the wind shear. So it's going to be a battle with any thunderstorm that does get developed. So we have lots of energy. We're going to also have some wind shear. And I kind of look at this, I'm not going to put out my own forecast. I don't do that. We have Colorado State's forecast. We have National Weather Service seasonal forecast. But I also wonder if this could balance out, maybe perhaps have some strong tropical storms, lower end hurricanes, rather than the the major hurricanes taking place. Let's say a system gets developed, lots of energy, and then it runs into that the wind shear. Kind of compare it to, if you want to do an analogy, as I think off the top of my head, maybe a baseball game. Let's say a Major League Baseball game at Wrigley Field with the wind blowing in and a power hitter at the plate. Something has to give. And maybe since that wind is taking place, the ball's hit off the bat really hard, and what would normally be a home run lands as a off the wall, and it's a double. So it just kind of a draw, if you will, or a tie. And that would be the best case scenario here. If we could just get some lower end systems rather than those major hurricanes developing, they could balance themselves out. But that's the thing with Colorado State, and they're very correct. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. If you do get a strong system developing, and it has the ability to completely fight off that wind shear, but it could also be enough wind shear at the time to be a dagger in the heart, if you will, for that hurricane. So it's just hard to tell, and I think the forecast is on point, but we'll keep our fingers crossed here that it won't amount to major hurricanes they have. And if it does, hopefully they'll just stay off in the Atlantic rather than the Gulf of Mexico or the East Coast.
Always the hope, right? Because I mean, yes, those water temperatures are warm, and if a storm can survive, it can, through the wind shear, those stronger upper level winds, it can certainly feed off of those warmer water temperatures. That's kind of what I have on the screen right now. The departure from normal and all of that, the reds and the oranges indicate that the water temperatures are still warmer than normal. I will say, Michael, that we're starting to see some Saharan dust out there, which is good news. That will hopefully hinder some of the water temperatures from getting any higher here over the next several weeks, because it's a delayed arrival of the dust, right? But we're finally starting to see some of those thick plumes.
No, that's right. The dry air and wind shear, that's like kryptonite for these tropical systems. So far, so good. But I want to caution people that, and the concern I have, it is just because it's quiet right now doesn't mean it will remain that way. And we don't want folks to get complacent and just write off hurricane season. But yeah, it's a good thing we have that Sahara dust right now, and that's just really shutting things down from the eastern Atlantic all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, at least for this point.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully continue to watch that, JB, but hopefully we have some questions coming in and we can answer your questions here on Tracking the Tropics.
Yeah, we're going to get to them in about 30 or so seconds. You see the hashtags all around your screens, folks. Now they're all moving around. Hashtag KJB, hashtag Hey Amanda, hashtag Hey Michael. If you use one of those hashtags, and I know we got Carol in the queue, we got a few others coming in. If you use a hashtag with your question on Facebook Live, we'll interact with you and bring your comment on screen. But you know what? Really, Amanda, I want to point this out really quickly before we go to the comments. Something that really stands out to me about what you were talking about as far as Colorado State University updating their forecast for the season, the lack of confidence that they have. I mean, is it fair to make a casino? And I'm going to make my own analogy, Michael, if I may. Making a casino analogy. I mean, are we talking about taking the white ball at the roulette table and just spinning it around the wheel, and we have no idea where exactly it's going to land as far as the number of storms we're going to get this year?
So it's been very interesting to follow a lot of meteorologists across the country, people who specifically study the tropics, climatologists who, that is their entire job, not just broadcast meteorologists, but are in the weeds of the data every single day. And every single one of them is going back and forth on social media. One day they're like, well, maybe I do think that the water temperatures are going to win out. And then the next it's, well, I don't know. We're starting to see some stronger winds and we got the Saharan dust out there. Maybe we will end up below average. So I really do think that time is going to tell with this season. Every single day we're seeing the atmosphere evolve. Like I said, the Saharan dust, a late arrival. Typically we see this early on in the season, and now would be the time we see that Saharan dust kind of start to taper off and more tropical waves come off the coast. But it's kind of the opposite. We're just starting to see these thick plumes making their way across the Atlantic. So I do think that time is going to tell with this season. Let's
get to the questions coming in. If it's got a hashtag, folks, we can bring it into our conversation here on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. Carol Alford is first, saying hashtag Hey Amanda. Okay, so this is saying possibly more intense storms, not necessarily all heading for Tampa Bay. Greek gods, keep them away from the Tampa Bay area. Yeah, I mean, wherever you're watching from, if we're getting more storms, if it is going to be an above average season, people are just hoping, Amanda, that it's not coming to their neck of the woods or Michael's neck of the woods, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. We can hope for 18 named storms to be what we call fish storms that stay out over the open ocean. We will track those all day long with very happily, right? Right, Michael? Because the storms that do come here, that do survive, will be able to feed off of those warm waters.
Michael, we'll try that again. I think we lost you there on Zoom, or at least we had just a signal interruption. You want Amanda? Would you like to?
Yeah. So I was just saying that we do hope that all of the storms that do form, 18 of those named storms, all 18 of them would be great if they were fish storms out over the open ocean. But if a storm can move in our direction, right? If it moves into the Gulf of Mexico and survives those strong winds from the El Nino, we could be looking at a stronger than normal system because of those warmer than normal waters.
That's right. We got some problems if
Yes.
it's let's say the wind shear does lighten up. Just let's say there's a window of opportunity. That doesn't mean that El Nino is going to cause constant wind shear that's going to disrupt hurricanes the entire season. But if there's a window of opportunity where the wind shear lightens up and we have a system moving into the Gulf of Mexico, those warm waters, it's going to be could be a very quickly intensifying situation. But again, if the wind shear is strong enough, it could be enough to, and I'll say we have some dry air and training into it, could be enough to shut it down. So those two factors, the wind shear and the possibility for dry air and training into these systems, that's the reason that I think Colorado State put uncertainty in their report. But on the other hand, with that warm water, there's a lot of fuel for these storms to develop and do so rapidly heading into the Gulf of Mexico.
Certainly those conflicting factors. But as the graphic stands, 18 named storms, that's all it says, right? It doesn't say anything about where they would go. Now, Colorado State, in their in-depth report, does talk a little bit about the possibility in the forecasts of a U.S. landfall. And they do say that compared to the long-term average, the forecast is a little bit higher for a landfalling system. But as the numbers stand, forecasting an above average season, luckily it doesn't say exactly, 1 or 2 or 3 or 18 of them will or will not impact the United States.
Right. That's important to understand. And you made a good point there. That doesn't mean there'll be 4 major landfalling hurricanes. Right. There's just 4 major hurricanes they are predicting. And hopefully that will not happen in the Gulf of Mexico. But the point is, if conditions are right, the wind shear lets up just a little bit. There's an awful lot of fuel, and it's that warm water is almost like Popeye popping a can of spinach.
Yeah,
I mean that can spin up in a hurry and strengthen in a hurry.
Right.
That's loving the analogies on this particular week's edition.
You're good at them.
Of Tracking the Tropics. Victoria Carpenter on the WFLA Facebook page. What about Sahara Dust? Have we not heard anything about that so far? No, we've been talking about Sahara Dust quite a bit,
but only recently. So Victoria, you're right. We haven't been talking about it a lot compared to the previous years, because in previous years those plumes have started really early. They were really thick, but this year they started really late, which is one of the reasons why the water temperatures have gotten so warm, because typically that dust blocks some of that sunlight and keeps it from heating up those water temperatures. But because it arrived so late, those water temperatures were allowed to get pretty warm. But right now, we do have a thin layer of dust over the Gulf of Mexico. We've been noticing a haze in the sky here in the Tampa Bay area. But look at those plumes coming off the coast of Africa. That is good news for the tropics, because it does keep things a little quieter.
Yeah, and Amanda, so if we're just for comparative sakes, right? We're looking at this graphic. Is this a little bit of dust, a lot of dust, or a whole lot of dust?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Michael attest to this too. The plumes that we're looking at right now, the plume over Africa and the plume over the central Atlantic, those are really dense plumes. And we like to see that, because the denser the plume, the drier the air and the less likely it is that we would see any kind of tropical formation.
And that's right. And with that dry air, we don't have those waves coming off the coast of Africa, obviously. And so that's good news. But at this, without having any type of systems at this point to kind of deplete some of the energy, once the pattern changes later in the summer, early this fall, there's going to be lots of energy in place. So it's something we have to. That's why I said we can't be complacent.
Right.
But this is the pattern now. I say the same thing. Folks will talk about it being so maybe it's unseasonably warm late in the spring, early in the summer, and they'll just say, well, it's going to be hot all summer long. It's going to be record-breaking heat. But no, the pattern will change. So that's what we have to really to be concerned about, is this pattern eventually will change, and things will, there'll be lots of energy in place when it does. But at least for now, that dust is shutting down any type of significant tropical development.
Our featured meteorologist, Michael Haynes, joining us from WIAT CBS 42 in Birmingham, Alabama. Great to have Michael on the program for the first time. We've had Alex and Ashley and other members of the WIAT CBS 42 weather team on our stream in the past. So it's great to have Michael added along here on Tracking the Tropics. Michael, before we let you go, any final thoughts, what you're going to be paying attention to over the course of the next few months as far as the Atlantic hurricane season?
Well, just of course, watching the pattern, and hopefully the things will kind of balance out the wind shear and the wind shear associated with El Nino, and the warm temperatures, the very hot temperatures of the the water temperature. And hopefully they'll just kind of not completely cancel each other out. Wind shear, have these systems coming in, keep this manageable without having any type of a major hurricanes making landfall along the Gulf of Mexico or the East Coast. But again, you just don't know for sure, so we can't lose sight on this is hurricane season, and things could change very quickly once we lose that Sahara Dust layer, and the pattern changes later this summer. But at least things are kind of favorable, I think, to minimize the impacts of a historic hurricane season. So I think we can kind of leave it at that as far as how this season should go. But could always be a surprise or a bump in the road along the way. So folks still have to stay very focused on the tropics, even though things are quiet right now.
We hope that they stay quiet for as long as possible. But of course, as the season develops and as we track storms out there, folks, trackingthetropics.tv is your headquarters for everything you need to know as far as updates, storm models, and of course, past episodes of Tracking the Tropics as part of course, WFLA and the Max Fender 8 weather team, and Next Star Nation, featuring meteorologists such as Michael and so many others that we have ready on standby, ready to go in the event of a storm. We'd like to thank Michael Haynes joining us from Birmingham, Alabama, and of course, as always, Amanda Holly here with us in your hurricane headquarters. We'll have, of course, additional episodes over the course of the year on Tracking the Tropics. We stream our episodes every Wednesday, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, and when storms form. So whatever platform you're watching or listening on right now, be on the lookout for additional episodes in the coming months. For Michael and Amanda, I'm JB. We'll see you next time, folks, on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.